I am so excited for today's conversation. So, I just have to tell a quick little story. So, Carrie Lynn and I met on LinkedIn, obviously, and I don't even know how we first got connected, but she popped up in my feed wearing her awesome yellow blazer, which immediately attracted me to her. I clicked on her picture and her profile and saw what her message was all about and really knew that it was something that our missions are so aligned and it tugs at my heart. And I just needed to reach out to her. And I'm only sharing this story because as women, we're kind of guarded and we don't really lean into connections. Like I hear so often from clients, and I know that I've even had this feeling myself, is that there's only room for one powerful woman at the table. So therefore, we kind of put up walls and we put up boundaries, thinking that we're in our own rat race. But it turns out we're only in a rat race with ourselves when we're doing that. So I am so excited to introduce Carrie Lynn Shaw, who is the founder and CEO of The Salary Bump. Can you share with us who you are, what you do, and all of the amazing things?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for reaching out. The yellow blazer happens to be my husband's favorite. Every time I ask him what should I wear, he always says the yellow blazer. I said it's getting a little old. I need to add some more color into my wardrobe. We connected. Obviously, that was a driver, but I think it was because we were commenting on similar things. We're also both professional coaches, and I think that was another connection that we had.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you, the LinkedIn connections that I've made, especially since founding my company, have really been incredibly powerful, and sharing similar philosophies and helping each other is big part of my mission and my purpose for finding the company. I'll tell you a little bit about the Salary Bump. I founded the company because what I recognized over the last decade plus is that women specifically don't know their worth, and they don't recognize that having a purpose and loving what they do from a career perspective and having the money are actually combined. They're not mutually exclusive. And there are three big things that my clients face. One, they don't know that they can ask, or they're going in for a job and they're so excited about the opportunity that they're afraid to ask, right? So that's number two. They're afraid to ask. They're afraid to lose the offer. And the third one is they don't know how to ask. And so that's what the Salary Bump is all about. And I'm really excited to share and to spend this half an hour with you and everyone else.
I'm so, that like tugs at my heart. And it's so aligned with what I do as an image coach for women in leadership. Similar situation that I was a personal stylist for years, and I started to feel like I was part of the problem of the consumption. And what I would constantly run into is I would work with a client. We would get the most beautiful wardrobe. They were super excited about it while we were together. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, this always happened. I would get the text, the email. I have to go speak on a stage. What should I wear? Or I am going to a conference. What should I wear? I need to go buy new clothes. And I would sit there and I would like say, "Hey, we picked out that green dress. We picked out that amazing pink blazer. Why are we not wearing that? Have you worn that? Have you enjoyed it so much that you're sick of it?" And then they would start creeping back to their old self of, well, maybe it's too much, or I don't know if it's appropriate, or I don't know if that's me. I'm not there yet. And so what I would realize is that when I was with these women, they would get super excited about what's possible and the opportunity and stepping into this version of themselves, feeling so empowered by their clothes, but they didn't really feel like they were that woman yet. So that's why coaching has been such an important part of my work, because I needed to help women hold themselves to a higher standard and to realize that they don't need to play small and they don't need to dress like a man or wear neutrals and wear beiges to be taken seriously. And they needed to be part of that process. And they also needed to hold themselves and see themselves at that higher standard so they could show up and play full out and stop second guessing themselves and save a lot of money, because panic shopping and keep buying stuff is just not not sustainable whatsoever, and it doesn't feel good. It really, really doesn't. So I'm super excited. One of the things that we chatted about was something that we found a lot in our work was confidence and the need for women to just own their selves and to own their own self-value. So talk to me a little bit about how confidence plays a role, especially when negotiating for yourself, your career, your salary, and all the things.
Love that. So, confidence is an interesting one because often what happens is my clients have told themselves stories about what money means to them, perhaps their beliefs that they've had around money for many years. Money doesn't grow on trees. I can't ask for the salary because it might come across too aggressive, or I don't have enough experience to ask for the money. I'm not qualified. And as I mentioned earlier, that I just don't know how. So one of the things that I like to talk about with my clients in our sessions is really recognize when in your career were you able to accomplish something? When in your career or your life did you have the confidence to do something? Whether that be something you did on your own, a fitness goal that you had, whether it was a weight loss goal that you had, whether anything at all in your life where you can say, you know what, I did that. I was successful at that. I know I can accomplish this. And I think the really big thing is just to get out of our heads and stop telling ourselves a story that may or may not serve us anymore, and to really take that story out, have a conversation with it, and challenge it, and do a sort of flip side discussion, line, piece of paper, line down the middle. This is the belief that's in my head that's stopping me from getting me what I want. How do I flip that belief into something that's actually going to serve me?
I love
What
that so
about
much.
you?
So confidence comes up obviously a lot in what I do because you being able to wear what you feel is right for you kind of takes some guts. And the interesting thing that I found through my work is that we're all kind of told put just fake it till you make it, just for the
Mm.
job that you want, not the job that you have. And there is power from in that. Like I definitely go into some sort of, I do believe that clothes are the physical form of manifestation. Like if you dress as the woman that you want to become, but you can only fake it till you make it so much. Like that's like it's superficial confidence. And for a highly intelligent woman, that only goes so far. Like you have to look at yourself in the mirror, you have to do the big things. So it's about actually developing some authentic confidence, which is you learning to trust yourself. So you could stop second guessing. So you can stop asking people what should I wear or what's the dress code. It's really digging deep into um, knowing what you want to wear as opposed to kind of, surveying the room. And two quick ways that I do this with clients is number one is like tap into like what your 5-year-old self was wearing. Like remember the girl that didn't give a crap that either was wearing a tutu and rain boots or was wearing like a GI Joe costume. Like that was before there was any judgment from
Mm.
yourself or for anyone else. So really tapping into that. The other thing that I'll also have with clients, and we do a lot of work on this, is like, how would your 90-year-old self want you to dress? Like at that time when you're like, I've accomplished all of the things, I have absolutely no regret, and you kind of don't care anymore. Like we go from like the 5-year-olds, we live our whole entire life in fear of judgment. And then we get to our 90-year-old self and is like, you know what? No one's teaching me anything more. And so how would she want you to dress? And
Yeah.
those are two things that I encourage clients to think about as opposed to the other side of going around asking someone how to find your own confidence. It's really learning to find the confidence within yourself that's always been there. You've just been suppressing it your whole entire life.
So interesting. So I think about getting on stage, and I think about a really important part was that prep prior to getting on stage,
Mhm.
and what I needed to wear that made me feel really good, made me feel comfortable. Comfort is a value. So when you talk with your clients, as I do with mine, it's really about what you value. What's important to you? I mean, my daughter, up until I think age 7 or 8, only wore yoga pants. And she was onto something because yoga pants are comfortable and the pandemic proved that. So, what is it that you really value? And I feel the same way when we talk about career and
Mhm.
purpose, and how you can have a career that is connected to what's important to you, what you value in the company that you are considering. Think about it from this perspective. I'm sure people who are watching have been in companies where there's a culture mismatch, where
Mhm.
there's a values mismatch, where companies maybe do things that don't make you feel really good. And
Mhm.
I'm here to tell you that you can have it all. You can have a company that has that match if you really dig in and understand what's really important to you. And I just want to reiterate that purpose and values are not mutually exclusive to having financial freedom. I believe that early in my career, not necessarily that it was mutually exclusive, but that I just want to do good work. I want to learn and I want to grow. And those are my values. And I always said to myself, if I do those things, the money will come. And to an extent, it did. So I made it to the C suite. Of course, the financial aspect came later, but I recognize looking back, I left so much on the table because I wasn't asking.
Mhm.
If I had only just asked, had the confidence to ask, or we want to talk a little bit today about vulnerability and putting myself out there, and knowing that it was okay to ask, that it wasn't, um, didn't have to feel icky.
Mhm.
That was something that was really, really important. And I think my clients are learning the tools on how to ask.
Mhm. I love that, and makes me think of conversations I've had with clients, when we start digging into misalignment for what they wanna wear versus what is quote unquote "acceptable," what they feel in the office, and almost kind of having that, like, conversation, like, "Okay, can we just talk about, like, how long do you plan on being in this company?" Like, I have to ask, like, when there's such a mismatch, when a client will share with me, like, "I love riding my motorcycle on the weekends, and I just love leather, and I love a little bit of funky," and they're like, "I work in a tax law firm, and if I were to wear one bit of that," because it comes into that identity of, like, you almost feel like you can't be yourself
Yeah.
only when it's not in the company's culture. So it's also important to kind of know, is this something that you're making up in your head? That you're not allowed to wear leather and you have to wear black to be taken seriously? Or is this something that actually is written in a dress code, or is this significant expectation, especially working in a male dominated field where I feel like women are so in fear of what if I look different from the man? And it's kind of like always kind of like using that as they use that to me as like their thermometer. Like they're like, well, what do I wear if a guy's wearing polo and khakis? And so like it kind of is always they're mixing that up. So talk to me a little bit about some of the vulnerability aspects that you've seen in clients, because that's a really, really important one.
It's funny you talk about riding. I ride a Harley, and I don't know if you knew that.
I
Um,
did.
I, it's funny you use that example. I would never think about riding gear as being something that I would want to wear on the street. It's actually not really that fantastic, especially for women. I think because there's fewer female riders. Other than my boots, there's nothing really that attractive about riding. But funny that you use that example. Vulnerability really is about putting yourself out there. And again, coming back to a time in your life when you did put yourself out there and what was the result. And when you had a successful result, when you put yourself out there. And look, asking for a salary increase or negotiating a salary bump, negotiating with a new company, it's a simple ask and then stop talking. So sometimes what happens is the vulnerability and the fear comes in when I might ask for it, but then I start negotiating against myself because there's dead air. And if I don't say something or if they don't say something, then I need to fill the air. Like I really want, I'd really like to make 125,000, but I'd accept 100. It's like, no, no, it's 100, whatever. I actually don't recommend you ever give a dollar amount. You always give ranges, but That's one of the things in coaching that we learned is ask the question and then stop talking,
Mhm.
because the person needs to find their approach. They need to dig in and find their answer.
Mhm.
So I think being vulnerable is just asking. Don't
Mhm.
be afraid to ask. What do you
Mhm.
have to lose? I also love that exercise. What's the worst thing that could happen? I'm actually a big manifester and follow the law of attraction. So I don't even ask that question anymore, but you can always do the best case, worst case. The worst thing that they can say is no.
Right. It's interesting, my coach once asked me, not what's the worst thing that can happen. She said, "What would happen if you got everything you wanted?" And
Ooh,
actually, that's where the fear comes in, because we as high achieving women, I find we're actually more afraid of success than failure.
wow, that's a good one. Another one is, what would you do if you weren't afraid?
Mhm. Yeah.
What would you ask if you weren't afraid? A fear, that's an interesting one. Maybe you can expand on that. So that women are also more afraid of the success
Because of
than the
what comes with
failure.
it, if you think about it, so I
Yeah.
can give real life examples. So, in my mind, what was modeled to me is that success meant hard work, meant hard work and sacrifice. So, if my family owns a store, so which was open, 52 weeks of the year, every single Saturday of my life was spent there. So, if you become successful, because we were all raised in a you have to work harder, not smarter. It's kind of now we're all getting a little bit more attuned to it, but a lot of times we think as that we can't have it all, especially as working moms, that the shoe will always drop if therefore you do get that, or if this is another one, if you
Yeah.
do get the money, then you're going to have to keep proving your worth over and over again so you keep it. Like, so there is this really, really thing that goes off in your head that a lot of women that I know self sabotage.
Yeah.
It's like that you can't you get that upper limit whole thing, that amazing book that I can't think of the author for right now, but, like, we all have our own upper limit that we constantly can't get past that glass ceiling, because in our mind that something will happen that we lose control, we can't take more of, and I see that so often with my clients is that there's so much resistance, and because they're so smart, and
Yeah.
fortunately, unfortunately, our brains actually are not meant to help us be successful. They're actually helped to keep us safe and small and familiar. So
Wow.
that's where all of that judgment with what to wear comes in, because for your whole entire life, you've been taught to play small, not raise your voice, not to take up too much space. And so the idea of potentially wearing something that may have someone just draw more attention to yourself, like, to stand out, and that's where I feel like the vulnerability comes in my work, like, what's the worst that can happen if you do wear, and I use pink a lot just because I like pink, and pink I feel like, and I've had my own issue with it. Quick 2-second story is I am obsessed with pink, but for years I wouldn't use pink as a branding color because I work with women in the C-suite and executives, and in my mind, their story was pink was soft and too girly. So I thought that I would like put them off by using pink in my branding. And
Yeah.
now I'm kind of like, let's talk about it. But I've had clients that for would shy away from things like pink or leopard or things that they intrigued them because of the fear that they would be drawing too much attention to themselves and what would they think. And then one of my clients, I had this like amazing screenshot of it, is she did wear the pink suit to a conference, and she actually texted me. She's like, "I'm gonna do it, but I'm just letting you know I'm doing it scared." And, like, she's like, "I'm doing
I
it?"
love it.
And she's like, "But I just want you to know that this is not coming easy to me." And what ended up happening is she got a lot of compliments, which is great, but compliments are kind of superficial. It's you feeling like you can rock it. But
Yeah.
she actually ended up hearing the CEO and CFO, that was her male counterparts, saying, "Wow, she really looks good. Look how like she's owning this." And that was the thing that was like, I can do this. But there's so much like, ooh, that comes about it just because it's something that's really stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. It's also about what resonates with me about that story and what you just described is finding your authentic voice.
Yeah.
So that's an authentic voice on my authentic look, how I feel, and also my authentic voice in how I want to show up at work, how I want to show up as a leader, how I want to show up in every aspect of my life, and how I want to show up in advocating for myself. And that's really all it is when we talk about negotiation, or we talk about landing the career that you dream of.
Mhm.
It's finding your authentic voice. So there's a way to do it and have a conversation around money and a conversation around how I look, that doesn't have to feel bad.
Mhm.
That's actually can be authentic to who I am, to my values. And it doesn't have to be the only driver, but it should be part of the conversation. And
Mhm.
it's really finding your special gifts and what makes you feel good.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really.
because if I tell you, walk into a negotiation and, this is what you need to do. No, this is what negotiation is. Let's put it on the table. Let's have a conversation. This is what wearing pink is. It's just wearing pink. But how does it make you feel? And that's what the beauty of coaching that and I know, and anybody who's had the beautiful experience of having a coach, being coached, is that you go to the feeling. And it's when you go to the feeling that you can actually change the world
Mhm.
and change your conversation with it.
Yeah, I wanna get to self-worth because this is really that's it's really tapped into that. But one thing that I need to say is that this is why so many people have worked with a stylist or a personal shopper, and it hasn't worked for them. Because it's the same thing. If you were to go to give someone the words for the negotiation, it's your script, not theirs. It's
Yeah.
them saying, like, saying my words with oomph and gumption, and they're like, "Well, what do I say again?" You can't remember it because it's not your words. It
Yeah.
has to come from here. It's the same reason, like, you go to a stylist and they're like, "Oh, you wanna look powerful and you wanna look smart? Here you go." They're putting you in a box and handing to it. Then 3 weeks later, you're like, "What is this clothes? I don't like it. I have to go do it again." And it's because it wasn't your idea. It didn't come from inside. You didn't do the work to be like, "Well, what do I like? What makes me feel confident? What makes me feel powerful? What actually do I wanna wear?" We're all leading with everyone else's version of success when we need to know what our own version is. And
Yeah.
I think that ties really beautifully into the last thing that we really wanted to talk about, which is self-worth, because we're almost afraid of of that and doing that work, and there is such a vulnerability, and a fear of judgment that
Yeah.
comes up when we are ourselves and we do show up with authenticity.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I mean, look, the best way that I have experienced with myself and with my clients is to really look at, when have I accomplished something? When have I been successful? What are my special gifts? What do I bring? And by the way, what you bring when it comes to looking for a job or talking about a promotion is, it's not just about the skills. It's actually, I can tell you, I think at one point in a career in one company, I had 5 jobs in 5 years. I was rocking and rolling. I was being promoted. I was moving and shaking. I had zero experience in most of the roles that they put me in. And the reason why I believe they chose me, I said yes to every opportunity and networked really well. So those were two things that worked very well for me. But the reason I think that they wanted me in the roles was because they recognized the behavioral elements of me knowing my worth, which was, I always knew I could solve any problem. No problem was too big. And you can very well do this by looking at where you face challenges in your life and you've accomplished, or you've moved past them, whether that be a horrible situation, relationship, could be grief, could be losing a job, it could be many different things. You come out on the other end and you found a way to break through. And so I always knew that there was a solution, and I was always insanely curious. I had an insane amount of grit. I'm super hungry, and not at any cost, by the way. Not because I think I have to run people over. I really see that we all have a voice and belong at the table. But those were some of the qualities: how I showed up, how I treated people, These are the things that really worked for me and were part of my journey. I didn't even recognize that this was about myself, my self-worth. I
Mhm.
didn't sit down and go, these are the things that really matter to me. I only did that later in my career.
Mhm.
I just naturally, these were the things that drew me. And when I would be up against a job and a leader would say, why you for this job? Like, I don't even know how to spell HR, but I can tell you these are the things I do really well. I connect with people. I'm a problem solver. I solve complex problems. I break them down and make them easy to understand. I don't stop until I find a solution. Um, my mission is to help people grow. These are the things that really resonate with me and matter. And I think I can translate that into HR, just as an
Mhm.
example. And that's a true story.
Mhm.
I was thrown into HR with zero background. It's, by the way, where I belong. There's a very big piece of my heart that belongs to HR, and I've spent many, many years now in HR. But I didn't know how to spell it when I fell into it, and creating a modern people structure inside an organization was something that I really, really valued. But I wouldn't have got there if I didn't say yes, and I wouldn't have got there if I didn't have those qualities. So
Mhm.
breaking it down that way was something that I found really helpful for
Mhm.
my clients as well.
I love that. And one of the things that you mentioned when you were chatting was curiosity. And that's the one thing that I feel that we, um, as women, like, we don't play enough. We don't get curious. We don't experiment. There's such a fear of getting it wrong. And we also don't learn anything by not trying something new. By
Yeah,
not, like, if you were to say, like, oh, I don't know how to do that,
yeah,
like, I'm not qualified, it would be that, you're just stopping yourself. And it's so, and trying something new and getting curious is amazing with every single aspect of our life, especially obviously getting dressed, because it's actually doing the thing. And again, going to that, well, what if I get it right? What if this is amazing? And one thing that I know with my clients, the things that they feel so much resistance about is the thing that they are afraid to try. Like, I will come up with, let's say, a crazy color combination. Like, one of my clients this week put together an amazing outfit, and it was like that like highlighter yellowy color, and this eggplant um purpley blazer, and it was gorgeous. But it was the thing that she's like, I don't know, this is a lot, like, and it's that this is a lot, like, this is a lot. Let me try
yeah.
it. This could be fun is such a better way to look at it. Oh my God, this is a lot. I'm not even going to try it. So just like leaning into what could be possible and trying new things is so powerful.
Yeah, what if I fail? Well, what if you succeed?
Hmm.
Right? So I think it's changing the conversation in your head. And when you start to have those negative thoughts come up, just to flip it on its head.
Hmm.
It's a really simple, sounds simpler than it is, of course, because you have to first recognize the thought, but to pull it out and have a conversation with it. I'm a big believer in pen and paper.
Hmm.
I know it's maybe a bit old fashioned, but to actually write that thought down, and the moment you write it down, again, put a line in between and flip it over, and have a conversation with it and change the story. I'm also an eternal optimist, and I really believe that there is always a way forward. And that was something I think that was fairly innate in me. I've developed it and grown in that space, and it's probably quite annoying, at least for my husband and my daughter, because I see the solution in everything, or I see positivity in everything, and that's not reality. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but it happens. It has worked really well for me, and it works really well for my clients when they have something tangible that they can do with the thoughts that get inside their head. Because essentially, you're blocking yourself from all the possibilities if you are spiraling around of all the things that are not possible. I talked to a client today or this week about finding a job in media, and all the reasons why she wasn't landing a job. It's hard in media. There's no jobs in media. Hollywood is on strike. All the things are the reasons why not. And I was like, okay, well, let's flip that on its head. How true are these things? Hollywood is on strike. That one's true. But does it mean that there's no jobs? in media, right? So to actually pull it out and have a conversation with it is just a
Mhm.
hopefully helpful takeaway also for people who are watching.
Yes. Okay, so I wanna know, what are 3 things that if someone that's watching this and they either wanna change jobs or they just wanna finally get what they are worth, what are 3 things that you would have them do?
Okay, well, I have four.
Okay.
First, and really important, is stop waiting to be invited, right? Just get out there. Send the woman with the yellow blazer a note and see where it goes. Apply for the job, apply for the promotion, do it. So I'd say stop waiting to be invited would be number one. Number two, just ask and do it in your authentic voice. Because I can tell you just one quick story on that. In my time in HR, which is 15 plus years, I would say less than 15% of people even negotiate. So of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of offers that I've given to people over the years, 15% negotiate. And it's an even smaller number when it comes to women. So just ask, because HR is expecting you to negotiate. The person on the other end is shocked that you're not. So just ask would be number two. Number three, I would say get out of your head and be really clear and intentional on what it is you want. And number four, do your homework and prepare for the conversation. No matter what situation I've ever walked into in my career, whether it be a huge presentation, whether it be prepping for this call, whether it be jumping into a job interview or negotiation, the better I prepped, the better I showed up. And the getting out of your head piece is a really important part of that prep, and looking
Mhm.
for all the possibilities of all the incredible things that could happen, and not getting so tied to the outcome that you narrow all of those possibilities, because abundance is not possible if you're blocking yourself. So those are my four. Sorry, I added a bonus.
That's totally good. So totally good.
What
And
about you? What are yours?
I really think that with your career, with whether it is salary or whether it is claiming your space in the C-suite or anything, it really is about developing your executive presence. Like the days of throwing some spaghetti on the wall and figuring it out the hour before your interview, like that again is not being prepared. You're going to second guess your outfit choice if you go into that, but
Yeah.
you actually have taking the time, and it doesn't have to be something that's this huge process of just me knowing, like, these are my power colors. This is what looks good on me. These are my 3 or 4 outfits that I really feel good in, and wear them and enjoy them, as opposed to being like, "Ooh, I can't sit in this." Like, that
Yeah.
is the worst feeling possible, and you're not playing full out when you don't feel good in your clothes. So
Yeah.
number 1 is really develop your executive presence. Number 2, go and find that 5-year-old girl or that 90-year-old woman to go and have a conversation with when you are not sure of what to wear, as opposed to going and asking and polling the room of what are you wearing. Like, she's going to actually advise you and what's going to feel good and worthy on yourself, instead of, the rest of the world, because again, no one can hand us confidence and no one can hand us a conversation that we need to have. And number 3 would be, if anyone is interested in really how to um, figure out what is going on with the disconnection of how you see yourself showing up and how you want to show up powerfully. I am having a free masterclass next week. I'll drop it in the comments here. It is how to shed your corporate armor and unleash your confident self, and it is going to just change the way that you think about getting dressed and showing up. So I invite anyone who wants to learn more about that here. And then Carrie Lynn, if you want to, if anyone wants to reach out to you, any way that they can find you.
Love that. I want to say one thing about executive presence. You don't have to be an executive on the C suite to have an executive presence,
Mm-mm.
right? So it's showing up as your authentic self, the person you are, the person you want to be, the person you strive to be. Just want to make that clear, because everyone can have an executive presence, even if they're not an executive. You can find me at thesalarybump.com. My website goes live next week. And if you want to talk a little bit further about how I can help you navigate your career and get the salary that you dream of, you can also message me on LinkedIn.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been fabulous.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Have a
Thanks,
good
everyone.
one. Bye-bye.